Welcome to the Chelsea Fans Channel. It is FA Cup weekend and this is the Everton-Chelsea preview. I'm joined here by Ramon. Ramon, say hello.
Hello.
Mate, we've got to get over the disappointment of midweek going out of the Champions League to PSG. Can we win the FA Cup? Give me some positivity, Ramon, to start this off.
I mean, I'm generally quite positive most of the time, but I think this is definitely one that we can win.
Yeah.
I think Goodison Park hasn't lost a game in the FA Cup yet.
True, in his life, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good omen first. And I think this is the one competition that we've had a realistic chance of winning after our poor sort of start to the season.
Yeah.
The Champions League was a hopeful sort of prize.
Yeah, it was a shut your eyes and cross your fingers and hope for the best, wasn't it? But it was, in my eyes, it was still doable. You know, no one gave us a chance in 2012, and I thought maybe we could go on some sort of Herculean, sort of fluky run and get to the final again. However, you know, PSG stopped us in our tracks in the week. But, you know, it's time to be positive. Silverware is still on the cards, and Everton are definitely a beatable team. We are away, but we can do them, can't we?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think the last time we played them at the Bridge, when we went 2-0 down,
yeah,
we showed our flaws, but then we sort of proved that they're defensively not airtight either.
Mate, they've got a defence like a slice of Swiss cheese.
Yeah, I mean,
there's holes galore in that
definitely.
defence.
I mean, they've conceded the same sort of amount of goals that we have in the league, which is a bucket load.
Yeah.
So we know that there's holes there.
But aren't they one of also the most free scoring teams in the league?
Yeah, so they've scored the second most in the league, sort of behind Arsenal and Leicester, who I believe are top on their own.
So they're basically like level with like Tottenham.
Yeah, they're level with Tottenham
scored.
with goals scored.
That just goes to show how ropey their defence is. You know, they should be Champions League places, shouldn't they?
Definitely,
if you're scoring that many goals, you know, they've got Lukaku up front, and I think he's the danger man. I think along with Ross Barkley, we've got to contain Lukaku, haven't we, this weekend?
Yeah, and I think it's sort of even more contain him for the fact that it's a bit of pride at stake for us. We can't sort of let him score the winners after sort of letting him go.
Exactly. Well, I think he's always got a point to prove, hasn't he? Whenever he comes up against Chelsea, let's not forget that he grew up in Belgium, but he grew up a staunch Chelsea fan as a youngster, and it was his absolute dream move, his dream come true to come and get signed at Stamford Bridge, and you know, we never really gave him that much of a chance. You know, he was below the likes of Torres and Demba Ba and Samuel Eto'o, I think. All of those strikers were above him in the pecking order. And, you know, he decided to play his football elsewhere. He's since gone on to become basically one of the best young strikers the English game has ever seen. And if you think that's an overstatement, it really isn't, because his stats back it up. He's in this special club. He's only the 5th player ever to score 50 Premier League goals before his 23rd birthday. And that puts him in a real elite club. He's in listen to the company he's with in this club. Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Michael Owen and Robbie Fowler.
I mean, it's pretty good company.
Mate, in terms of strikers, it does not get much better than that. And you know, this season alone, he's been on fire. I think he's scored 18 goals in the Premier League. He's 1 goal behind Jamie Vardy in terms of the race for the Golden Boot. I mean, that decision to sell him to Everton is now looking like a bit of a silly one, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, I mean, hindsight's a beautiful thing.
It is it's quite a disastrous thing at the moment.
Yeah,
because we're thinking, you know, at times this season we've been like, where are we going to get a goal from? And then we've got, you know, a guy like Lukaku up in Liverpool just banging him in for fun. When really, you know, back in the day, his heart was set on doing that for us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's like a cruel irony in it somewhere. And he is potentially, you know, the Didier Drogba potentially of his generation. We've got to remember how young he is still. Ramon, could you see him ever being re-signed by the club?
Well, I mean, there's been a bit of paper talk about it recently,
there has.
and I don't know whether he'd want to come back just because of how he was sort of treated. I mean, or how he felt he was treated, whether rightly or wrongly he was left out of the squad when he was with us. There were a lot of experienced strikers at the club at the time, but he's proven to be sort of the better choice than they were.
Yes, absolutely. I think also the thing about Lukaku, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my opinion of him when he was at the club, yes, I wanted him to, to do well and to get the opportunities that probably he didn't get. But he seemed to have a little bit of an attitude problem, even back then. And, some people say, a good striker has got to have a certain level of arrogance. All the Ibrahimovic, all the best strikers in the world have that sort of certain, uber confidence about them. But I remember when he was on loan away from the bridge, and I think he was he was obviously ineligible to play. I'm not sure whether it was his loan at Everton or was it his loan at West Brom, but whatever. He was ineligible to play against us. But he kind of paraded, the other team's shirt as if to say, like, up yours, Chelsea, even though I'm still on your books, my heart is lying with another club at the moment. And I think that sort of stuck in my craw a bit with him.
Yeah, I don't think he ever endeared himself to the fans.
That's what I meant to
when
say.
we won the Champions League, he had that moment where it sort of touched the wrong buttons with a few people when he said that he didn't feel part of the team. He didn't want the Champions League medal because he didn't play in it.
Yeah,
and that sort of attitude.
What a bratish thing to say. You're a young man. You've just been given the honour of being part of a squad that wins the biggest trophy in club football. You've won a gold medal, and you're going, no, I don't want the medal because I didn't get enough games. Come on, mate. So, all of these factors, I guess, came together, and the decision to sell him came, and I think it was a relatively big money offer. It was over 20 mil, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was close to 30 million.
Yeah, so maybe at the time it was good business. However, we've got to keep him under wraps on Saturday. Do we have the defence to do that at the moment? That's the question, Ramon.
I mean, after sort of midweek showing, you'd probably question that. But I think it's Cahill and Ivanovic are two big and strong centre-backs. They're used to dealing with a player like Lukaku. They might struggle sort of more with someone like Ibrahimovic who drops into space.
Yes.
Cavani who has the movement.
Yeah.
Lukaku's going to try and physically out.
Yeah, he's a bit more of a sort of old-fashioned British centre-forward in a way, isn't he? He's going to be backing into the centre-backs. Which
should suit our defenders, and you'd like to think that they'd keep him under wraps.
Well, I'd like to think also that they are going to really go out on Saturday and put a good performance in for the fans, basically, because I think we, after Wednesday, we're owed it a bit, aren't we?
Definitely, and I think there was very few sort of performances during the PSG game where you could see the player that wanted to win.
No.
I mean, you and Rory talked about it in the sort of post-mortem with Diego Costa being that sort of almost representation of what the players should have been like.
Should have been like. I think him and Kennedy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, no one else really, mate.
Yeah. For me, it was Ivanovic just because of there was that moment at the final whistle where he looked distraught to be out, whereas the others sort of meandered off the field.
Yeah. It was like full-time whistle. Okay, thanks very much. I'm off for a shower.
Yeah.
And as you said, I mean, I didn't notice it at the time. I ran out with Rory to get on with the fan cams, but Ramon stayed on a bit in the stadium, and he was saying that Ivanovic was just sort of a desolate figure, wasn't he? Just by himself, like staring into the abyss in the centre circle, realising that Chelsea, had blown it and we were out of the cup.
Yeah, I think he's sort of one of the last standing figures from that Champions League winning side. So he knows how hard it is to get there.
Yeah.
How we've had some of the best teams in Europe and only made it to one Champions League final during that period of glory, and then managed to make it to another while they were sort of on their way out.
Yeah.
So it's never a sort of given that you'll end up in the Champions League, and I think we can't treat the FA Cup as just another cup. It has to be something that this is important. It's our
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's what we've got to pin all our hopes on now, basically.
Yeah.
But guys, even if we were flying high in the league and still in the Champions League, I would still always have all the time in the world for the FA Cup.
Oh, yeah,
I will
definitely.
never ever see it as a secondary competition. I never see it as a competition where, oh well, maybe it's time to rest our good players and we'll put some youngsters in, or we'll put some guys that aren't really on top form at the moment just to give them a run around. Absolutely not. The FA Cup is the oldest football competition club football competition in the world. People from all of the continents around the globe know about the FA Cup, and no matter what area of the world you grow up in, if you grow up wanting to be a footballer, one of your dreams is to grow up and score the winning goal in the FA Cup final, isn't it?
I know I had many sort of playground moment where I did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think any sort of silverware that we get to, whether it's the League Cup or FA Cup, but now this is sort of doubly important where it's our best chance to get into Europe next season.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And as you touched on earlier, mate, it's about pride, isn't it now?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is sort of one thing that the fans demand from the players. It's the least that we sort of expect from them is just to show a sense of pride and passion for the club. And I think that was missing pretty evidently on Tuesday.
That's it. I mean, you don't mind seeing your team. I mean, you always hate seeing your team lose, but you can take it, can't you? If your team puts in a blood and guts performance and you end up unlucky and you're on the losing team, you'll accept that.
Yeah.
But it's going out there and not trying 100% that really, it's hard to take. And these guys are, they're professional footballers. That, there should be no room for any kind of complacency or anything like that in a top elite Premier League club like Chelsea. So after this little chat we're having now, we're going to pick our team. So make sure you join us for that in part 2. But let us know in the comments below what you thought of some of the points that we've raised today. Be really interested to hear your thoughts on Lukaku. Were we right to sell him in the first place? Would you like to see him back at the Bridge? Let us know below. And also, what do you think the score is going to be in the Everton game? It's probably going to be a high-scoring game. Chelsea have won their last 2 FA Cup games at least 5-1.
I mean, it's a sort of one competition this season where we haven't struggled for goals. So
yeah, and Everton as well have been pretty free-scoring in this cup. They've scored 2 or more in their previous 3 FA Cup games. So it should be a high-scoring game. Let us know in the comments below. Predictions?
I think 3-2 win.
3-2
win.
Win.
High-scoring.
High-scoring, yeah. Do you know what? I'll have some of that. 3-2 win too. So join us for Pick the Team Part 2. And remember, blue's colour.
Come on, you Blues.
Welcome to the Chelsea Fans Channel. I've just this second got back from Norwich. It was a great trip. We got the 3 points, but the night was worth so much more than that.